Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. Today is part 5 of the ZL1 1LE partial carbon fiber front end conversion. See my car here, still disassembled. I got the hood up, and you know, if you're at this stage and you followed my other videos, links should be up here for those if you haven't. But when you pull everything apart, it's a good time to give everything kind of a wipe down where your bumper might be covering stuff. So wipe down right here. And there's really kind of two versions of your bumper reinstall. That's what we're going to do today. Is we're going to reassemble the bumper, reinstall it onto the car. Now, right here is normally kind of dirty, so you can wipe this up, and you can leave this exposed behind your bumper if you like, but that may affect insurance claims if you have a small fender bender, because you can leave off some of this foam, I guess crumple barrier stuff here, and some of this plastic, and not clip it back to the back of your bumper. I've seen a few people do this, and you would actually have instead of having this kind of a black flat plastic piece that you'd see behind your grill, you would have your exposed body color metal crash beam right here. So if you want that look, you can go with that, but you may also see some of the wires and stuff. So really, if you're going hardcore, you can do that. I'm going to put everything back together, and just so I don't have potential issues with my insurance provider. But yeah, so here is the back of the bumper where we left it off in part 4. And I went ahead and kind of clipped up some of the wires out of the way, plugged in my side markers, and as you can see here, and actually taped off the old daytime running light, fog light harness with some of this Tesla tape. I'll have a link in the description for that. It's really good stuff for electrical work. Doesn't get sticky, gooey, kind of like electrical tape after a long period of time, and it comes off pretty clean off of anything. So if you ever do want to go back to some kind of fog light or use this harness to provide some kind of power for any potential other devices, lighting or underground effect lighting or whatever, this will be easy to get re-access if you so choose. Now, as you remember from part 1 when we took the bumper off, or maybe it was part 2 where we actually disassembled some of it, but there's 3 pieces that go behind the bumper that need to be reattached. You have your foam piece, this plastic piece, the foam piece I believe slides into like so, and then this will actually clip up into the bumper. You have these little clips right here, and then this plastic piece actually then slides in from behind. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the camera set up, and we're gonna go ahead and put this stuff back into the bumper. Hopefully we can then get the bumper back to the car, and yeah, get that thing locked back in place, take a look, and then go on from there. Back over here behind the bumper, and I went ahead and just snapped this foam piece. It just lines up, nothing fancy, into this plastic shield. Now, if you're really fancy and you do want to run this, you can actually vinyl wrap this, do some kind of give it a gloss finish or a different color if you want. I'm not that hardcore on that, so I just snapped my styrofoam piece into the back of it, line up the holes right here on the top, and then it has little slots. You can see right in the far right corner on each side. Those should clip around these big clips right here coming off of the lower grill. So see if we can get this thing to snap in without too much trouble. Okay, so it should sit kind of loose like that now that we have that clipped in. And then you want your big plastic back piece here, and then this should then slot in directly in and then clip into these top clips up here onto these little clips here without too much difficulty. And then you have big screw holes right here. That's for those weird, if you saw in my video too, big plastic threaded screws. If you can see it here, those should go in there. And what I use a Rainbird tool, but I'm sure there's something official that you can use that's not hacked like mine. And you don't have to really get too crazy with it. And then once you have that together, you should have 2 clips believe these ones, they should snap through the top. Actually, it might be the larger one. Okay. And then that locks it in place. And then you have another one right here. I have to go find where I tossed that one. I have, oh, here it is. Wanted to point these out real quick. You do have these two bottom. These are the smaller two little clips here. You want to make sure those are in. The two larger ones on the top. This doesn't really, I remember when I took this apart, it doesn't really snap in. It just kind of just sits on it. And what mostly holds this in is the actual styrofoam piece that actually clips onto the clips on the sides on here and here. So this doesn't actually like fully clip in, but it doesn't just fall out, but it's going to be mostly held in once the bumper's reinstalled. So if you notice, that's a little bit loose up here. It's not really a clip per se. I mean, it looks like one, but it doesn't really, the gap between these are so much that it doesn't really snap it into place. It just kind of gives it a ledge to rest on. So now we can hopefully get this thing lifted up, and I'm going to try one-manning this. Hopefully I don't crash and burn, but I'm going to lift this bumper up, and then I'm going to then take it straight inward onto the car, make sure these sides are kind of cleared, and then just push it straight on. So it should just slide on and snap in. Bumper is up. I just one-manned it. Didn't have anybody helping me. Well, so if you're in the same situation, it's doable. And pretty much just lined it up. You know, right here, I grabbed through the tail light, the headlight openings with my hand and kind of guided it on. You want to go straight on, nice and even, and it should clear all of these little cutouts here. You can line up the bolts. Now, it's not completely locked in yet, but you know, I also have the tow hook little piece here for my license plate bracket, and it's not quite locked up here. There's a little snap, and there's a couple here that you want to lock in. So I'm gonna have to tilt it up a little bit more, get this locked in. And also, if you go underneath, I'll get my lighting here. You can see it here. It's not quite all the way locked in. So I'm gonna try reaching up for here and squeezing it together. But also, when I put that bolt up there in, that should help pull these tabs all the way in and give it a nice flush connection. And you can see here, we have the wires, and just make sure you have your zip tied up like I have mine, so they're not, going to be bouncing around while you're driving, especially that old running light right there. You can see with the Tesla tape on it. And then you have the harness right here. That's the only harness that you have to worry about plugging back in once you put the car bumper back on. And that plug goes right there, as you can see in the center of the screen. And then that actual little snap, wherever it is, a little snap on the cable will go in that little hole right next to the plug right there. And yeah, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and we're gonna grab my bolts, and I'm gonna go ahead and put these in on the inside, see if I can pull this bumper fully flush. You can see here it's not quite snapped in. And then we will take a look. I'll tell you exactly what I had to do to get everything back together. And then we're almost on the home field stretch. So yeah, I took care of 99% of the gap. There's a little bit here. I can't remember if that was already there. I mean, it's GM. So the body panels, you sometimes do have a little bit of gap. Not too bad. I did notice, if you look under here at the top, this little piece of the mount was kind of bent a little bit from maybe when I took the bumper off. So I kind of bent it back into place. And then you have your 4 bolts down here. They're all 7mm, and they all have the flathead washer. Once I drove those home, not super tight. It did pull in that gap that I was showing you earlier. So just wanted to point that out real quick. And then you're gonna have, I believe, three more bolts. They're up facing. They go down in this weird kind of plastic thing here. So I do know 2 of them don't have like this large washer around it, and 1 does. Just make sure you put them in the right place. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in and double check which ones go where so I can tell you guys. And then once I get these locked in, we'll come back here and then get this harness plugged in, and then I'm gonna knock out the other side. Got the 3 bolts here. The one with the larger washer is the one right here. And this helps clean up this gap right here, make it look a little bit nice and tight and even. And then the 4 that we talked about earlier, those are all the larger washer versions. So yeah, right here. And then we have our connector. It's gonna plug into that bad boy here. And one of these little white things fell out the back of this. I'm not sure what these are for. I guess they're just to hold the pen blank or something like that. So hopefully that's not a big deal. I don't think it will be. I'm gonna go ahead and get this plugged in, and then I'm gonna get this little clip snapped in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the same on the other side, minus the connector, of course, because there's only one. Have both sides buttoned up pretty well, and actually while I was at it, I lifted up the wheel housing, whatever they call this, the felt liner stuff. Pretty much you just have to kind of finesse it back up in here over this lip. I'm going to clear the lip, and then you want to make sure you clear all these areas here and then tuck it up, and it's going to kind of sit above the lip, kind of like that. I don't have it buttoned up yet because I have some scratch guard stuff I'll be putting on, so I'm going to have to do that still. And then once you get both sides done, I also don't have the wheel housing piece in over here. I'll add this here shortly. If you saw my video up here on my wreck, minor wreck with a piece of tire, it damaged this piece, so I had to buy a new one. So I had to take the whole piece out, which sucked because I had to remove my ACS fender guards, which I'm waiting on some rivets so I can rivet back in place on the new wheel housing. So I'll be doing that later. And yeah, so all this is buttoned up. Next up, you're going to want to go ahead and knock out these. These are the Star T15s, I believe. Yeah, T15s. And also 2 clips, one on each side. I'm going to go ahead and knock these out real quick and then continue on. The little snap clips are in place each side, and the T15s all the way in, except for this one. This one's kind of stripped out from not the bumper removal earlier, but actually when I did the little intake piece here, when I had to pull this little clip part off for some other install, and I put it back in, and when I went to take the bumper off, it was so stripped that I could barely get it out. So I'm not going to put it in. I'm going to order a new one and replace that. So that's why I'm missing this. But do note, this one, which is the second one over from the center line on both sides, is actually not just like the other ones that have the washer on it. It's actually a longer T15 bolt, and then a little, almost like a little plastic looking piece that kind of sits in there. So you set the piece in there, then you put the bolt in and drive it through. I guess it just goes and grips in somewhere else a little bit further or something like that. So just make sure you repeat that and don't forget that piece that clips in there. And so the top part's all buttoned up, and I'm going to go ahead and install my grind or skid guards. I'm not really going to cover that, but I'll show it to you when I'm done. But these are going to use some of the same holes that you actually bolt the splitter in with, and then also a couple that I'm going to have to drill. So I'm going to go ahead and get these installed. I'll show you exactly when I'm done with it. And even though it's not part of the bumper reinstall, just to give you an idea, if you do want to do a little extra protection on the bottom of your bumper or of your lip, especially if you went with the Anderson Composites carbon fiber one, and you don't want to grind it on a low bump or something like that. They should help protect it. It's not going to be guaranteed, but maybe give it a little extra thing to ramp off rocks and debris, and maybe give it a little bit more longevity. So I'm going to go ahead and get these installed, and then we'll get underneath and we'll talk about the deflector plate. Right here I have a brand new one. Also, my old one was destroyed, as mentioned, and actually I had a new one of these I've already installed. That was destroyed by the tire, and a few other things. Just got done reinstalling this entire wheelhouse velvet liner piece here, and you know, to actually do the take the front bumper off, you just had to do the front half. So just make sure you get all these T15s back into place. You can see them here. There's also a couple clips here and here, and then you got some T15s all the way around, and then you have that sub piece that goes on top, and that has a number of T15s and a couple clips. And then make sure you fit, if you can see it, that little brake duct thing right here, make sure that fits through the wheelhouse liner, and then you should have everything buttoned up with that. Now we're gonna go ahead and get underneath, and I'll show you the deflector and what you need to do to get that back on place, and then we should be good to go. I have the entire underside buttoned up. That's including the pieces I had to replace from the damage from hitting the tire, but also from the bumper conversion. And one thing to note, with the Anderson Composite 1LE splitter, and if you're running this piece right here, these are little, kind of get underneath it, but these, if you want to bolt these back on
which you want for aerodynamics. I noticed it was rubbing a little bit on the end of the splitter right here. And so I took a Dremel and I just did a little notch here and a little notch here on the actual, not the splitter, but on this aero piece, and it was able to then seat nice and flush with the splitter. So, and then if you go underneath, you can see I do have these splitter guards, which, I mean, they're for the normal splitter, so they're kind of back here a little bit, but the way the splitter kind of curves up, I think this should still be the first impact point. And I could only get 4 bolts, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts on the side ones. These two, I couldn't, they won't line up. I don't think it's a big deal because it's on here pretty solid. And so I wasn't really going to sweat that. And then another thing I did notice with the arrow, kind of see it up here, I ended up, let's see if I can get underneath the car. I ended up drilling a hole in the bottom of the back part of this arrow piece, and then I just ran a zip tie through the hole that's on the arrow piece, through the end hole of the splitter, and then through the hole I drilled, and then I just zip tied it, and that held it nice and tight, super firm, no big gaps or anything. So I think that'll work out good. And then if you notice I have another zip tie here, that's because when I hit that tire, it actually ripped the portion of this whole liner piece where the tab would go. It ripped right out. So I no longer had that to bolt this piece right here in on this little T part of the arrow. So I just ran it a zip tie through there to hold it nice and firm. It should work fine, no biggie. But make sure you do button up your various arrow pieces. You want the rest of your wheelhouse bolted in that you unbolted when you took the front bumper off. The deflector, as you can see, this is a nice shiny brand new one. Mine was shattered, so this is a new one. And you have the silver bolts, either 10 millimeter. There's going to be, I think, 6 of those, 1 on each side in this area right here. And then you're going to have 4 running on the bottom. The rest are 7 millimeter, these black bolts right here. And they're going to run all the way around the perimeter of the deflector pretty much. So nothing super confusing and or complicated. And then if you notice that piece over there is also new. I replaced that because that was broken in the incident. And yeah, so this is what it should look like underneath. I do have this center piece of this deflector that I'm still working on. I needed some longer bolts to go in here. I had to drill this, but the bolts I have don't pass all the way through the splitter and the bumper mount. So I'm gonna get a little bit longer bolt so I can actually bolt these in through here. And I have 5 of those. So don't worry about that. You're not gonna have to worry about this if you don't have any of this thing. But if you do want to install these and run it together, pretty much what you need to do, how I have it when I mentioned having to bolt only part of the bolts. And then it's pretty nice how this side actually runs through the little gap in this splitter guard. So pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and get back top side and we'll finish this video up. There we have it. So the ZL1 1LE partial carbon fiber conversion for the front end is complete. Everything's back together, and you can see it looks pretty good. You know, not perfect, but overall it fits pretty nice. All the little gaps mostly filled after I put the bumper on the car because of the flex when it was on the workbench. Kind of opened up some gaps, but I mean, a tiny little bit, but I mean, you can't see light through it or anything like that. So overall, I think the fit looks, you know, superb, really. You know, I did notice when I was doing anything, I had a little bit of a, I guess an epoxy rough spot here. I don't know if that's where some of the clear coat rubbed off or something like that, but, you know, kind of out of the way. And once I put some PPF over it, to probably kind of hide it. You know, here the canards look real good. Another defect in my PPF from when I took the license plate off. Now, of course, if you have a license plate, make sure you remount that up. Have everything buttoned up. And sorry I can't give you guys a real great shot of it since it is my garage. And I'm going to have video. The series is wrapped up, but I'm going to have new videos, maybe a series or single video for the rear. I'm actually going to be pulling the rear bumper off, and I'll be replacing the diffuser with an Anderson Composites diffuser, which I heard is a little bit more complex on doing an install on. And I'll be putting on some new taillights possibly, and some other stuff.
And another thing you may have noticed up here, I don't have my ACS rock guard yet. I'm gonna have to order some rivets or pick some rivets up. And so I didn't button up all the bolts right here just because I don't have to want to undo them. So I'm gonna have to redo the ACS rock guard here. And that should wrap this one up. Hopefully it isn't, you know, too boring. And maybe if you're planning on doing this, this will give you a general idea of the work involved. It's not, you know, the easiest thing, but not the hardest. It looks like I have a little bit of the clear coat coming off here too. I guess this is just because the way it pushes against the bumper. Mostly out of the way, so not a big deal. The show side looks really good, and that's before I even cleaned it up. So as always, guys, feel free to subscribe, like, share, comment, you know, all that fun stuff. And you know, hit me up in the comments if you have any questions on any of this stuff, or you know, suggestions, or anything you see that maybe I did incorrectly, and you have a better version or better way to do things. Feel free to let everybody know, including myself. Always here to learn and hopefully teach as well. And yeah, so I'll give you guys a little final shot here. I think it looks good. Overall, I'm pleased with it. Able to get the whole front end redone, fix all my damage from my tire incident, and you know, it turned out great. So, peace.